What's going on, guys? Alpha the Wizard back at it with another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at 2006 Chaos Return format. This format was from March to September of 2006, and we're going to go ahead and see kind of what the format was like. It was basically flooded with a lot of Chaos variants: Chaos Recruiter, Chaos Return. Chaos Return was by far the best version, so we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. So to start things off, we have the best monster of the whole entire deck, and that monster is Chaos Sorcerer. So Chaos Sorcerer was like the center of this strategy, because basically we were trying to fuel our graveyard with lights and darks in order to be able to summon Chaos Sorcerer and maximize on our boss monsters on the field. In addition to Chaos Sorcerer, we also play Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon is just single-handedly just a good big body, and it's like the perfect light to incorporate into a chaos strategy, especially around this era, because banishing like multiple chaos dragon or cyber dragons throughout the duration of the duel, and then just being able to flip return from the different dimension to summon them back is really strong. But also with Cyber Dragon, looking back, some people might actually cut down on Cyber Dragon and play some smaller light monsters. But, this is kind of like where it stood, back then. If it was optimized, though, people probably would start cutting it down to maybe like one or two. Now, we do play Zaborg. Zaborg is just a really good card this format because it's very easy to just tribute and then just pop a card. And popping like a Dequechi is very essential this format because it's very easy for your opponent to get like ahead really fast. And with the addition of Treeborn Frog, it just doesn't make sense not to play Zaborg in a chaos strategy because it is a really good light. But then we also played Jinzo. Jinzo was very prevalent this format because Return from the Different Dimension was played everywhere. So Jinzo just being able to just negate all trap cards just stops your opponent from OTKing you, and they had to inherently just deal with Jinzo to be able to really make big pushes. In addition to Jinzo, we also maximize on Draw Engine by playing 3 Dequechi. So Dequechi is really good as well. Nobleman of Crossout is played pretty heavy this format, so it's kind of weird, but at the same time, having a Dequechi just nets you card advantage, and if they don't deal with the Dequechi, then you're just going to have a tribute summon for a Monarch or Jinzo. But then we also play 2 Magician of Faith. Magician of Faith is pretty good this format as well, just being able to recycle your spells. Faith has always been good, like Goat format, Reaper format, pretty much every format that it was legal back then. But then we also maximize more lights by playing Magical Merchant. Merchant's good this format just for the sole purpose your spell and traps do a lot more because, in this deck in particular, you're trying to search for Return from the Different Dimension. So this card just basically helps you excavate lights and darks to the graveyard and get to your return way faster. And then, of course, we have like staple cards like Sangan. Sangan is just pretty much a staple in almost every old format. So there's no reason not to play it because it searches pretty much anything you might need. And then we have Breaker, the Magical Warrior. Breaker's really good this format. Breaker just seems to get better with every format, to be honest, because it's inherently just getting value from your opponent. You're forcing something. You can break the return on your turn, forcing them to pay half their life points and prematurely use it, as opposed to most people want to save it for when they try to OTK. But DD Warrior Lady is also another good addition because it is a light and it just deals with so many problematic cards. But then also we do play Treeborn Frog. As I mentioned earlier, Treeborn Frog definitely helps with Zaborg and Jinzo, of course, but it just keeps coming back every single turn. But then we also play Night Assailant. So Night Assailant is really good this format, mainly because Graceful Charity's back. So with Graceful Charity coming back, and we play so many flip effects, Night Assailant just gets way better. But it also inherently just deals with problematic cards. And then last but not least for the monsters, we do play a Tsukiyomi. Now, Tsukiyomi does get a little bit better this format as opposed to Reaper format. So yeah, this Tsukiyomi, being able to just recycle Dokoichi over and over again is really, really important. And that's actually kind of what I remember when I first started competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! It was back in right around this era. And I can just remember being a newbie to the game, or at least competitive play. And I can remember people just normal summoning Tsukiyomi, booking their Dokoichi, flipping it up, drawing cards, and they just persistently do that to just keep netting advantage. Now, Tsukiyomi is just such a good addition to this deck with having so many flip effects. But yeah, and it's also a dark. So that is it for the chaos portion of it. And then on to the spells and traps. You know, what would this deck be without the power spells? Graceful Charity. Obviously, you have to have Graceful Charity. Graceful Charity is one of the best cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, and you'd be a dummy not to play it. And then also, Confiscation is legal this format. So we gotta play Confiscation because just simply being able to rip a very powerful card from your opponent's hand, like a Chaos Sorcerer or a Return from the Different Dimension before they have a chance to set it, Confiscation just helps you prolong the game. And then this is a set heavy format, so we play 2 Noblemen of Crossout. Nobleman's also good just since a lot of people are setting more this format because they're looking to get set up as opposed to just, you know, making big power moves on turn 1. And then we also play 1 Book of Moon. Book of Moon is good for the sole purpose we have more flip effects in our deck now. So just being able to keep recycling them and act as an interruption on the opponent's turn is really, really solid. And then Premature Burial. This card is still legal in Chaos Return format. Premature Burial is really good. I mean, just for obvious reasons. You can revive a flip effect and you can Tsukiyomi set it. So like Premature Burial, but I usually save Premature Burial for when I try to OTK. You definitely want to like hold these cards for as long as possible unless you're forced to use them. But then of course, Heavy Storm. It's another card that changes the game because when Heavy Storm's not in the format, then people don't play around it. But Heavy Storm being in the format, people have to play their cards in a way where they don't play into heavy. But yeah, and then of course we play the 1 Mystical Space Typhoon because the card is still at 1 at this time, but that just goes to show the power scale of these cards. And then we do play 1 Scapegoat because this card is also still at 1 at this time. Scapegoat is just, you know, good for buying time, and we're trying to get set up for the OTK. One card that a lot of people don't play, but I opted to play, is Brain Control. So this card wasn't really popular that format, and I'm not really sure why, because this could deal with the Spirit Reaper, this can take one of their big bodies and tribute over it. I think Brain Control is a really solid card this format, and yeah, I would definitely play that if we had like a tournament. Last but not least for the spells, play Enemy Controller. So Enemy Controller is in almost every single one of my retro lists just because like I understand the power behind it. Like simply just being an interruption, but also being able to tribute like a goat token to take your opponent's monster is really, really powerful. But that's it for all the spells. Now for the trap cards, this might be pretty self-explanatory, but we play 3 Return from the Different Dimension. So Return from the Different Dimension is basically the core strategy of this deck because we are opting to get as many banished monsters as we possibly can and then just return them all back. And then after that, we still have some staples that we opt to play, like Mirror Force. We kind of got to have that card just because it is a blowout, as well as Torrential Tribute. These cards don't really need too much explaining. But then we also play Call of the Haunted. Call of the Haunted has been a staple in the past formats as well, just because of the power of being able to like revive a Sangan or a Jinzo or even just a big body. And last but not least, a card that I opt to play is Bottomless Trap Hole. So there are a lot of, you know, macro and DeFi decks in the format. So just being able to like Bottomless, a DD Warrior Lady, it doesn't really work on DD Survivor, but hitting their assailant is really good as well. But also bottomlessing like a Zaborg is really, really prevalent, or even a Chaos Sorcerer. But yeah, so that really does it for the Chaos Return deck profile. I will be back again with a Chaos Recruiter profile for this format. And yeah, so definitely be on the lookout for that, and I will see you in the next one.